Well, sure enough,
Mhm.
I ended up going one night. I was up all night doing my thing there and slept in. And at that point in time, I was the operator for the entire hospital. So, like, when a physician calls in and he's like, "Hey, I'm a neurosurgeon. I got to talk with this neuro doc," they
Mhm.
would call in and those calls would literally go nowhere.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk. This is the place where we have uncomfortable conversations in the world's most comfortable underwear. This week, we are picking back up with Zach's story. He had just failed in a big way, and we're going to see where he takes this. Is he going to make better decisions, or will this continue down a bad road? Here we pick back up with the story.
Luckily, there was another kid there at the time who every once in a while would do some of the operating stuff. So he was able to hop on the phones and do the best he could to, get calls going through. But I ended up got like a wake up phone call and I'm rushing in there and everything. He ended up going and contacting my boss who wasn't there because it was the weekend. And in typical Zach fashion, it can never be my fault. It's everyone else's fault for my problems. So I wasn't upset or didn't think that there's anything wrong with me being up all night and missing work. It was all that kid's fault that he went and, he ratted me out. He told on me. So I showed up to work pretty much so intoxicated from the night before. And I'm, getting all argumentative with them. And they end up going and having the boss come in and she's like, "You absolutely reek of booze. Like, you got to get the heck out of here." And so they basically gave me the ultimatum of you can either resign or we're going to fire your butt. So that was where I ended up losing a job as a direct result of my alcoholism, drug addiction, that type of thing. People often ask, "Hey, how do I know if I have a problem with anything, gambling, sex addiction, drugs, alcohol? At what point in time is it of concern?" And I kind of tell people only you are able to truly identify if you have a problem. But one of the things you might want to look at is if it affects your relationship with your friends, your family, your work, yourself, your spirituality, you might want to take a look at it. Because you know about you guys, I love an ice cold glass of milk, but I've never sat there and thought, "Man, I might be drinking a little bit too much milk. I'm missing work because I'm up all night drinking milk."
Yeah.
And that was one of the many, many things that happened to me due to my disease.
So if it starts to affect things that matter in the long term, your ability to make money, your relationships, and yeah, that's interesting. You say your relationship to yourself, that goes a little bit unnoticed. And I'll say for me, when it came down to the things that I was addicted to, it came down to self-hatred. Like I could not stand the way that I was, and I felt that I needed to do something to be accepted, to feel good about myself, to feel comfortable in my own skin. And what I realized is I actually just literally had to do nothing and say, man, gosh darn it, I like myself.
Did you find yourself getting into the vicious circle of doing the thing that was making you kind of feel bad about yourself over and over again to make yourself feel good, but then it was also
Oh,
making you
yeah.
feel worse?
Yeah, 100%. It would feel good for a little bit and then it would finish. And it's almost like I woke up and I'm just like, what? Why can't I control this? Why? And so that's what started, for me at least, it started like a long journey. I read the Bible and I found a really good group of friends. And that was honestly the clincher for me, was when I found a good group of men that I could spend a lot of time with and they could get to know me over years. That's been the best thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. Like, so
No.
we're at this point. You had mentioned drugs too. Like, was it any? You want to mention anything specific?
I did everything that I could to rationalize stuff. So I knew the irony to all of this also is so my father has been police and SWAT for literally almost 30 years. He just retired. And I guess you could say some of that kind of helped in a way continue on my disease as far as I probably didn't have as many consequences as I should have. Eventually I had a lot of consequences, but I was really good at rationalizing. Like I was always told, heroin's bad, but if a buddy of mine had like some like pain medicine or something left over from a surgery from a long time ago, I'd be like, okay, I'll take one or two with you. Or meth is bad, but if one of the people in the dorms had some Adderall and I had a big test coming up or I wanted to party longer, I'll take some of that to stay up longer. So it's all
Mhm.
very similar. The other one too, my whole thing was I was really big into benzodiazepines and alcohol.
Okay.
So benzos, for people who don't know, they're like your Xanax, your Ativan, lorazepam. It's almost kind of like a pill form of alcohol. And I was
Mm.
prescribed that at the time. And even though I did need it at the time, I would take it in excess and I would mix it a lot of times with the alcohol because it would make the alcohol and eventually your tolerances for this type of stuff get so high you're just drinking all day long to get the same effects that only a couple drinks would do early on.
Yeah. So you lost your job, and I think that's about where we left off. You lost your job, and you're like, well, here's a signal.
Yeah,
Here's your sign.
unfortunately most people would say there's your sign. I went, oh no, it's whatever. So I continued
Mm.
on. At the time I was going
Okay.
through EMT school. We had just graduated and we all decided that we were going to go out and celebrate. And we ended up going out to get like margaritas at a Mexican restaurant. And it turned into something literally out of like the Hangover movie. We ended up like becoming friends with like the mariachi people and the waiters at the Mexican restaurant. And we went back to their house for like a house party. And so I was planning on staying there overnight, but there was some sort of like altercation between the people that I was in school with and the people from the restaurant.
Hmm.
So, I ended up deciding that I was going to drive home. And at the time, I had this car that was set up for the drag strip, had like straight pipes on it, super duper loud and obnoxious and everything. And I decide that I'm going to go and drive through this residential neighborhood at like 3 in the morning in this thing. And I get probably, a couple miles down the road. And sure enough, a cop goes and pulls me over. I've had a decent amount of run-ins with the police and everything. And as I had mentioned before, my father's police and SWAT. He has two brothers. They are all, similar fields and lines of work and stuff, and all over the state. I personally knew a lot of the police officers all over the place. Well, this guy had
Hmm.
pulled me over and I happened to notice on his uniform, he had a certain SWAT insignia that just so happened to be the SWAT team that my uncle ran. And
Mm.
so I'm like, cha-ching, I got this in the bag. So I said, hey, do you know so and so? And he's like, yeah, that's my boss. I'm like, oh, that's my uncle. And sure enough, he was like the nicest guy ever and everything. He's like, oh, no way. And he's shooting the breeze with me. And I'm like, haha, yeah. And then he goes and he rips my butt out of the car and he writes me for everything under the sun. And I end up getting arrested and charged with a DUI. He charged me with like everything DUI, strange possession, I think tinted windows, out exhaust, everything. And as always, it's not Zach's fault. It's the officer's fault. Like, does he know who I think I am? And I'm like, here he is, being a good cop. He's doing his job. I,
Yep.
this guy, he's a butthead. How the heck could he do this? So I ended up getting arrested. And that's when my parents finally were like, hey, you have a decision to make. You can either go and check yourself into rehab or you are no longer welcome in this house. And so I
Mm.
reluctantly was like, all right, I'll go to rehab, I guess. And at that point in time, I was very close minded. I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't want to be there. A lot of the people there at the rehab were telling me I didn't have a problem. And I should, just to clarify, it was the other people I was in treatment with. It wasn't the staff saying that I didn't have a
Yeah.
problem.
I was wondering.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would go and I would surround myself by the people that would say, oh yeah, you're just a young kid drinking. Your parents, like, they're just overreacting. And I'm like, yep, you're right. But as I stayed there longer and longer, the seed was planted and I started kind of realizing, like, okay, I can relate a lot more to what these people are saying in here. And
Mm,
I was very close-minded in the beginning. I'm not as bad as these people, or this hasn't happened to me yet. This guy is homeless. I haven't been homeless. This guy's doing
mm,
this. I haven't done this. And those are all yets. If you have an addiction, it's a progressive disease and you're going to get there. And sure enough, I did. I ended up getting out of that treatment and I white knuckled it. Probably got like 30 days of sobriety under my belt when I got out. But they encourage you to work a program and get a sponsor, work a 12-step group, go to meetings and stuff. I think I went to a couple
mm.
meetings, but I didn't do any of that. And so inevitably I went back out again.
Hey guys, I hope that you have been loving this episode. If you love this content and you want to support us, you can hit that like button, comment on this video with your stories, and subscribe to the channel because our goal is to bring stories like this to you so that you can realize that there's hope. So without further ado, back to the episode.
Yeah, so at that point in time, I got out of treatment and I had mentioned that as my disease continued on, my people, places, and things and stuff slowly started getting worse. So my parents
Mm,
decided, hey, your drinking is getting out of control. We don't want you here anymore. So I ended up going and I was lucky enough to move out to my uncle's house, kind of in like the hood of Cleveland, if you will. And once again, rather than going, hey, I have a family member who's nice enough to take me in and give me some shelter, I was like, I don't like it here. I want to go and numb that feeling of being uncomfortable. So that's where I started. My drinking went from every night to just all day long. And
mm,
because I didn't like myself, didn't like where I was at, didn't like anything. And it's all just rationalizing. I just wanted to drink, is what it came down to. So my
mm,
alcoholism at that point in time got to all day, every day. I was drinking before work, drinking at work. I remember waking up and, I had to shake so bad that I couldn't even put the can to my mouth because I was shaking so bad. And eventually my uncle at the time decided that he had enough of me as well. And he
mm.
kicked me out. And at that point in time, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I pretty much became homeless on the streets of Cleveland. And it's important to note, too, all I had to do to have a place to stay was be clean.
I hope that you've been enjoying this episode. We are going to pause right there, and what is going to finally turn on the lights for him and give him the ability to crawl out of this hole. And honestly, this hole is like so many holes that we dig ourselves into. So I hope you guys come back for part 3. It's a wild story. I'm going to keep editing. And if you've been liking this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We would love to hear from you guys. We'll see you next time.